When a teenage girl disappeared without a trace, everyone went out looking for her. But as years went by, people started to give up until a creepy video cropped up that shocked everyone.
I brought her back to my place. I know she hates cameras, but I'm gonna show you around anyways. You ready?
Let's get into it. Kayla May Berg was born on August 29, 1993, to her parents Hope Sprenger and James Spanbauer. She grew up in the small town of Antigo, Wisconsin, with her older brother Jimmy, and had a pretty normal childhood, filled with lots of family fun and outdoor adventures. Unfortunately, when Kayla was little, her mom and dad separated, and not long after, her dad was diagnosed with cancer and had to move in with Kayla's grandparents as he underwent treatment. Kayla was very close to her dad, and seeing him sick really took a toll on her. When Hope and James separated, they agreed to have an open door policy with their kids that allowed Kayla and her brother to see both parents whenever they wanted. This kept the family close, even after the separation. Kayla was described as a sweet and kind-hearted person who would strike up a conversation with basically anyone. She was also a very energetic and talented gymnast who specialized in tumbling. She had been participating in the sport since she was a little girl and was a member of her high school's team. Due to her friendly nature, Kayla had lots of friends and loved spending time with them.
Of course, she always wanted to be with her friends. Friends.
In 2007, one of her friends introduced her to the party scene in Wausau, Wisconsin, a city located right near Antigo. The parties became the highlight of Kayla and her friends' weekends, but they would never sneak out without their parents' knowledge in order to attend. And it was at those parties that Kayla met Miguel Moreo, who was 4 years older than her. Miguel and his friends were known to throw huge house parties that Kayla and her friends attended. Despite their age difference, Kayla and Miguel started dating. Hope didn't approve of this relationship and felt like Miguel was a bad influence and taking advantage of her daughter's naivete. Kayla had started skipping school and experimenting with narcotics, so Hope decided to bring her daughter to a new environment, hoping they could have a fresh start. And although Kayla hated having to leave her friends, she agreed to move with her mom to Texas. After several weeks of living in Texas, Hope realized that life there was not as easy as she had thought. She was having a hard time finding a job, and Kayla's new high school didn't have a gymnastics team. Also, Kayla's dad's health had started to deteriorate.
Her dad was not doing well. I felt the need that she needed to be, by her dad in case something did happen.
So on August 2nd, 2009, Hope and her daughter moved back to Antigo, and while Hope stayed with a friend, Kayla went to live with her dad and grandparents. On August 11th, just a week after she got back, Kayla called her mom to tell her that she would be spending the day with a friend called Natasha. The girls hung out at the park and later at Natasha's house along with her older brother Jimmy and Natasha's brother. At around 5 p.m., Natasha left for work while Kayla stayed behind to catch up with another one of Jimmy's friends, 24-year-old Kevin Kacheski. The two made plans to meet later that night. Kevin picked Kayla up at 9 p.m. from her grandparents' house. Her dad was in a different room when she walked out the front door, and he would later say that he heard her yell, "Dad, I'm going out," and then she slammed the door. He never imagined that it would be the last time to hear his daughter's voice. The following morning, James noticed that his daughter didn't come home, and he called Kevin to ask her about her whereabouts. Kevin told him that he had dropped Kayla off at a friend's house and hadn't heard from her since. But when Kayla still hadn't come home by that evening, James decided to call his ex-wife to see if Kayla was there. However, Hope had also not heard from Kayla, but she knew Kayla had a habit of hopping between friends' houses during the summer, so she was not worried. Maybe Kayla was at one of her friends' houses. Days passed, and still no sign of Kayla. Where could she be? She should have called by now. Hope was getting worried, and she called several of Kayla's friends to check if anyone had heard from her. One friend said that Kayla and Kevin had dropped by her workplace on August 11th at around 9:30 p.m. Kayla had told the friend that she and Kevin were going to smoke and drive around. She promised to call her friend later that night, but she never did. Hope was now starting to panic. She called Kevin, who told her that he had dropped Kayla off at Miguel's house. But when she called Miguel, he claimed that she hadn't seen Kayla since his house party the previous weekend. Something was definitely not right, and Hope knew that one of the two boys was lying. She called Kevin again and asked for more information, like what was Kayla wearing and where exactly did he drop her off. But Kevin said he couldn't remember. On August 17th, 6 days after Kayla disappeared, Hope went to the police and reported her missing. At first, the Antigo police classified her as a runaway. This was because of her adventurous nature, and also her friends seemed evasive when questioned. However, as days turned into weeks, authorities began to suspect that something more sinister had happened. But what? The last person to see Kayla was Kevin. When he was interviewed, he admitted that he smoked pot with her before dropping her off at Miguel's house at around 10:30 p.m. The lights were turned off, and it looked like no one was home. He didn't see Kayla enter the house, but he left and went to his parents' home in Deer Brook, Wisconsin. However, there was something in Kevin's story that did not add up. The house where he claimed to have left Kayla was Miguel's old house, which had been condemned. According to Kayla's friends and Miguel himself, Kayla knew that Miguel no longer lived there. She had even attended a party at his new apartment. So why would she ask to be dropped off at an abandoned house? That did not make sense. And when the investigators looked at Kevin's cell phone records, they knew that something was definitely off. On August 11th, Kevin called Kayla at 9 p.m., but then his phone died or was turned off soon after. It was not turned on until the following afternoon. That's a red flag, if you ask me. At this point, the police turned to Miguel and confronted him with Kevin's story. But Miguel maintained that he never saw Kayla that night and they had not made any plans to meet up. His cell phone records seemed to corroborate his story since he did not contact Kayla that day. Also, he allowed investigators to search both his rental house and his condemned house, and they found no evidence of Kayla ever even being there. Kevin and Miguel gave their cars to the police for forensics testing, but nothing of interest was found in either of them. By now, the news of Kayla's disappearance had spread around town and sparked a lot of rumors and theories as to what happened to her. The main rumor was that Kayla was killed because she was pregnant and that the baby's father killed her. 7 weeks after Kayla went missing, the police searched an area near the abandoned house where Kevin claimed to have dropped Kayla. A cadaver dog got a hit on an area with a pond, but when a dive team was brought in, they found nothing. A cadaver dog is specially trained to locate and indicate the presence of human remains. The police then set up a line of 10 cars, including Miguel's and Kevin's, for the dog to sniff out human remains. And as the dog walked through the row of vehicles, it got a hit. And guess who the car belonged to? Yeah, Kevin. Could he have done something to Kayla? Investigators seem to believe so because they started checking into Kevin's timeline to see if he was lying to them about where he was. He kept saying that he went to his parents' house in Deer Brook after dropping Kayla off. And when the investigators talked to his mom, she confirmed seeing him in the house around midnight. But there was still something off about his story. Investigators brought in cadaver dogs to search his properties and several areas of interest. And on 2 occasions, they hinted at something on 2 properties linked to Kevin's, his parents' property and a potato farm where he worked. However, they could not uncover enough evidence to link either scent to Kayla. By this point, Kevin had stopped cooperating with the police and had hired a lawyer. The police had nothing on him other than the fact that he admitted to smoking illegal substances with a minor. He was charged with second-degree reckless endangerment of a minor, but a judge dismissed the charges due to lack of evidence. Kevin also refused to take a polygraph test offered by the FBI and instead later took one from a private firm, which he claims he passed. The FBI offered a $20,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those involved in Kayla's case. Police followed up on tips from across the country. One stated she was back in Texas, working at a gas station, while another said she was hiding out in Boston, Massachusetts, but none turned out to be her. As years passed without any real leads that could explain what happened to Kayla, the case began to fade from the headlines, and people started to forget. That is, until 2016, when a really disturbing video cropped up. The video, which was posted on YouTube in October 2009, showed a man acting all creepy and weird talking about his new girlfriend.
I brought her back to my place, and I know she hates cameras, Walter, but I'm gonna show you around anyway. You ready?
He then walks into a locked bathroom in the basement and opens the door to reveal a girl locked up and screaming. And that's not even the end of it. Everyone said the girl in the video looked a lot like Kayla, and even her mom was shaken up when she saw the video.
I watched it, I would stop it, I would pause it, I would break it down, and man, it sure did look like her.
The police quickly got to work and tracked down the man in the video. As it turned out, the video was just another amateur horror short, and the man and the girl were just actors with no connection to Kayla and her disappearance. disappearance. Although the video turned out to be fake, it led everyone to think that maybe Kayla could be facing a similar situation. The police released an age-progressed picture of Kayla, showing how she would look at 22 years old, and tips started flooding in again. Police followed up on every tip, including one that said that Kayla was seen working as a waitress in Louisville, Kentucky. But as it turned out, it was not her. It had been 12 years since Kayla went missing, but her family was still looking for answers. I can't even begin to imagine the pain that they've been through, not knowing what happened to their daughter.
And I just want to know what happened to her, and I want her home. It's the only thing I want. I don't want anything else.
This is really heartbreaking, you guys. Can you imagine staying all these years without knowing whether your loved one is dead or alive? You live hoping and yet not knowing whether you'll ever see them again. Kayla's family has gone through that now for over 12 years. And even more heartbreaking, her dad died in 2011 without knowing what happened to his little girl.
And I would make sure that we could get the answers. And it's unfortunate that he had to pass away without any closure whatsoever.
Investigators have said that they're not losing hope and that they will continue to search for Kayla. Miguel and Kevin have since lawyered up and are no longer helping in the investigation, which is really suspicious, if you ask me. Even though there has not been any evidence of foul play in the case, I can't help but think that something awful happened that night. And although I don't want to point fingers, I think Kevin and Miguel know something that they're not telling, but mostly Kevin. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. And if you thought this case was insane, the next one will totally blow your mind.